are the ingredients for our sev. I've taken the prawn vermicelli, which is a pack of 200 grams. I've taken 2 packs, so that's 400 grams of vermicelli, 400 grams of granulated sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, rose water, nutmeg, cardamom powder, and I've got my ghee already reaching its smoking point. I'm going to turn down the heat, and I've got ready hot boiling kettle ready to go if I need it. And you need to keep all your ingredients close at hand because the sev will tend to burn. What I'm using is roasted vermicelli, and these are the Bangladeshi brand, which is second best after the elephant brand that I've always used. The ghee needs to be really hot, absolutely hot, otherwise you will take a long time cooking your sev. So what I've done is I've rolled the packet, twisted and turned the packet so I could squash up the vermicelli. Now that's what I'm doing here, trying to break them. As you can see, they are not evenly browned in the packets, so we need to get them to have an even color. Normally the sev is done in a langri or a poro patio, which has got a broad base. But this being a non-stick vessel, I use it mainly for sev and malido and ravo. I normally keep my pots and pans separate for things that I need to use it for. Like this one is only for mittu, like sweet stuff. Okay, I'm breaking it all down. And now I'll turn up the heat. And this is the process, which is quite cumbersome. Constant roasting your sev so that it doesn't burn up from the sides. If you think it's heating up really fast, then just keep your heat on to medium flame. I'm working on my gas stove hob, so that's like direct heat, and I can control the heat, which probably if you're using the electrical one, you may not be able to do that. Because the sev is already roasted, doesn't take long to fry them to a nice golden brown color. I'm just going to scrape off the sides. As you can see, it is browning up a bit, so I'm going to turn the flame down, and now I'll add the salt to my sugar, and I'm going to mix it all together. Now when I'm doing this, the sugar starts caramelizing, so you would probably start getting a more darker tint to your sev. I just want the whole thing to be mixed together, because if it touches a hot pan, then it will be stuck and your sev will tend to stick there as well while you're cooking and you've added water. So just to avoid that, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of my cardamom powder while I'm roasting it. I will also add it at the end when I finish. Got a nice uniform color, which is golden brown, or maybe a little darker than golden brown, but that's what we want. And as you can see, this is what I was telling you about. If you don't mix the sugar fast, this is what it becomes, and we don't want that. Try and break the lump, if any. And now we'll be adding water to our sev, boiling water. I've got my kettle ready. So what I'm going to do is scrape the sides. Okay, and here we go. Water just enough so that the sev is like soaked up, not too much at this stage. We will keep on checking it as it cooks and gradually add water. This is very important to have the right temperature. Everything has to be equally hot. Variation in temperature can sometimes make you wait for ages for the sev to cook. So that's why I use the hot water. But I remember my mom using cold tap water, but this is what I prefer. This is how I make it. So I've sort of improvised on the techniques that we have been using all this while. We've got a nice brown color to our sev. And we won't open it till the water's evaporated a bit. Then we'll add some more water and let it continue cooking. And what I've got here is this fork that we use for barbecue for our meat. I use it to fork the sev once it is done, so I'll show you that when we come to it. We can see that the sev has softened up a bit and it's absorbing moisture. So what I'll do now is add some more water, just a little bit. It's like cooking your rice. Okay, now we are going to see the water's evaporating, and you can still see the sev is like a bit raw. You can see some of them are cooked, some are not. I'm going to add some rose water to this while cooking instead of the normal water. Now, I've always used rose water while cooking, so instead of water, I put in some actual rose water. So probably maybe half a bottle, about 300 ml I use at time for making my sev. This is for about 400 grams of sev. And as you can see, the water is not enough. So I'll start adding some more hot boiling water. That goes my lid. It takes a longer time to cook, and initially when I started doing sev, I would think something is not right, something is going wrong, why is it taking such a long time to cook? And I would get a bit panicky, but then my mom would come in and she would rescue me, and she would tell me this takes time, and just be patient, it will cook, keep on checking, adding water as you go, Just to make sure that it doesn't turn into a whole big lumpy sticky save, we want each vermicelli like separate, and so we will fork it in the end, but the process of cooking is quite important here. As you can see, it is absorbing water. We are gradually getting there. Some more water required. Okay, now the sev is cooking up a bit. I'm just going to finish my rose water. Just gently fork the sev through, just to make sure it's not sticking at the bottom. Like I mentioned earlier, if we have some granules at the bottom, that's what it turns into lump and the sev sticks there. Just make sure you scrape off the sides. It's coming on well. The real trick of the sev is, once it is all cooked up, from time to time you've got to come in and fluff it up with a fork. And that's where this comes into picture. And you would have to let it cool down, but not with the lid on, because then the steam is caught on the lid and the water tends to go back inside. But we don't want to do that, so I cover it with an old malmal sadro or a muslin cloth, or maybe just a clean kitchen towel. Cover it, let it cool down, then you can put your lid on once that is done. As you can see, it is all coming there. As you can see, it is sticking at the bottom, needs water. There we go. Just a little bit. As you can see, when I'm doing this, each vermicelli that falls off is like coming out separate. You can see they are not lumped up together, but at this stage we need to close the lid and let it cook further. Just a little bit of water. There we go. Good enough to keep it moist. Some of you may be wondering why I've put salt in it. It's always balancing the sugar with a bit of salt. Anything sweet, like we would do caramelized salted caramel, which is so much an in thing these days. So to cut the sweetness, you need a little bit of salt, and that's what is very crucial when you make a dessert or a sweet dish or ravo. Yeah, I would put just a pinch of salt. It balances off the flavor, so it's coming along really fine. We've nailed it again this time. All done, just finishing off without the lid now. This is the final bit of it. Now I'm going to turn off the heat and keep it on the hot stove. This is the result of the lumpy sugar lump that we had. So if we don't mix it, this is what becomes of it. We don't want it sitting in a sieve. I'm going to take it off the heat now because I want it to cool down. Now as you can see, I'll let it cool. I've got an old sadro here. You could use your kitchen towel. I'm going to let it cool now. That's how I cover it up, let it cool. I'm not going to put the lid on at this stage. So what I've done is I've covered it with the malmal or an old sadro or a kitchen towel. Now the heat escapes and it allows it to cool. If you put the lid on, it traps the heat and it forms water condenses, and we don't want that extra bit of moisture going back into our food. So we would let it cool down with the sadro. Okay, I'm going to sprinkle cardamom and nutmeg powder in it. Just probably 3/4 of a teaspoon. So a couple of times this needs to be forked and made it fluffy before it cools down. And as it cools down, it takes a longer time. If it is not fluffed up, it will take a longer time to cool as well. So as it is cooling down, you can see the texture of the sev.